Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. My name is Kristin O'Donnell, and welcome to the Friday Unwind Gentle Yoga class. I want to start by saying that Hands to Heart Center Yoga for the People is a nonprofit organization that shares the healing practice of yoga with people affected by addiction, poverty, and trauma in Greater Boston. Hands to Heart Center would like to thank the Boston Public Library for partnering with us on this virtual project. So thank you all for joining me again for another Friday gentle yoga class. If you have any issues hearing or seeing me, please feel free to type something in the chat. You might see that furry critter running by. That's my cat Marshmallow. I know she's quite famous with our Hands to Heart Center attendees, so you might see her walking around throughout the class today. Today, for props, if you do have props, I would recommend reaching for a blanket or any cushions you might like. I love having participants, if they want to, get as much support from our rest shape at the end of class. So if you want pillows and blankets and all the things, feel free to reach for those before we get started today. And if you have 2 blocks or 2 books, if you don't have blocks, you can use books as blocks. You may need these for today, but you may not. So if you don't have them, no worries at all. I will be giving modifications for those people without any props. So feel free to reach for what you'd like to get started. And whenever you're ready, maybe starting by finding a lying down shape. And I'll meet you there on the floor in a moment or two. I want to talk a little bit today about softening. And if you've been to different teachers' classes, you might have heard a yoga teacher use that term. They might say, soften into that shape. And to me, that's a term that we use as yoga teachers all the time, but it's easier to say than to actually know what we're trying to say and what we're meaning by softening our bodies. Because I do find that can be a hard thing to grasp what that actually means. So for today's class, we're going to be working with softening our bodies and really noticing what might be softening and what might be tension. So first, to allow you to understand what I mean by softening, I like to think of it as tension is the opposite of softening. So we'll start by noticing any tension in our bodies, and from there we'll release, we'll let go, and that is softening in itself. So noticing your body relax, noticing that letting go, that release of tension, that is softening. So we'll walk through that as we move through our practice today. And this is your practice, so feel free to follow along with me. I'm here as a guide, but also feel free to move in any other way that you like in your body, any other way that feels right for you. And if anything hurts, please move out of it and move to something that feels better. So this is your practice, and I'm here to guide you, but you can move in whatever way feels the best for your body today. And know that that might be different from yesterday or the day before. So if you have already made your way to the floor, feel free to pause and notice your body. If you haven't, make your way to a lying down shape whenever you're ready. And maybe taking a moment or two to notice how you're lying on the floor or on your mat. Maybe noticing what parts of your body might be resting on the floor, and maybe what parts of your body might not be. So this will be a little check-in, and we'll see if there's any changes in a moment after we practice some tension and softening, this little exercise I have for you. So starting to notice your body as you're lying down. Your knees can be bent or they can be straight. And being aware of what parts of your body might be touching the floor. So maybe your shoulder blades, maybe parts of your arms and legs, maybe your hips. Oh, and Marshmallow is coming to say hi. Noticing what body parts are touching the floor, and then in turn, noticing what parts of your body are not touching the floor at all. Maybe there's parts of your legs and arms, maybe your lower back, maybe the back of your neck. So noticing that there might be different parts that are and are not touching the floor, and taking stock of what that might be in your body in this moment. And you might notice that maybe one shoulder feels like it's more on the floor than the other. Feel free to notice that as well. Taking another moment or two to become aware of that. And then whenever you're ready, we'll start to tense the body. So start to curl your toes, add some tension in your feet and your legs, adding tension in your hands and arms, tensing up your fingers, maybe even curling up to tense or staying laying down, whatever you prefer in your body, tensing up as much as you can. And then whenever you're ready, slowly starting to release that, slowly starting to let go, releasing your toes and your feet and your legs, arms and fingers, letting go of that tension. Taking a moment to notice and soften. So allowing yourself to soften a little bit more, letting go of where you're holding in your body, where you might notice that you are bringing tension, and allowing yourself to release that. Now we'll do this 2 more times. So whenever you're ready, once again, bringing tension into your body, curling your toes and fingers, tightening up your legs and arms and torso, maybe curling up into a ball if you'd like, or maybe staying laying down. And then in your own time, letting that go, starting to release that tension, releasing your toes and legs, feet and arms and hands and fingers, head and neck. Taking a moment to notice and to allow your body to soften. You might notice that maybe you soften one part of your body, and maybe it could even be softened a little bit more. So you might not fully release that tension with each attempt to soften, and that's okay too. Part of our practice today is to give ourselves love and to not judge our process. So whenever you're ready, maybe doing that one more time, starting to tense up your fingers and toes and arms and legs, any part of your body that you can tense up, allowing that tension to be there. And then slowly, whenever you're ready, releasing that tension, letting go of that holding, noticing where there might still be resistance and releasing that if you can. Allowing yourself to sink into your mat, allowing the mat to hold the full weight of your body. And then whenever you're ready, maybe coming back to that check, that body scan we did a moment ago, noticing how your body is resting on the floor and on the mat. Maybe noticing if this feels the same as it did a moment ago. Maybe there's parts of your body that are now resting on the floor that maybe weren't resting on the floor or touching the floor at all before. So taking a few moments to notice how your feet are resting, your toes, your legs. Are they resting in the same way that they were? Are there the same parts resting on the floor, or maybe it's different parts of your body resting on the floor? Moving up into your hips and noticing your upper body. Slowly making your way into your shoulders, noticing how each shoulder is resting. And then slowly making your way to notice your arms and hands and fingers, and eventually your head and neck. Letting go of any tension and noticing what body parts are resting on the floor and what parts are not. So maybe this is the same as the scan you just did. Maybe this is different. Allowing yourself to notice whatever that might be. And then in your own time, whenever you're ready, maybe bending your right knee, bringing it in towards your chest. You can bring your hands so that they're interlacing around your shin. Maybe pausing in this shape. If you'd like, you can add some movement, maybe moving your right leg in circles. Making this movement as big or as small as you might like. And if you chose circles, maybe doing a few in both directions, starting to add some small movements into your legs. So really letting your left leg be soft, being relaxed as it lies on the floor. You can also keep your left leg bent with your foot resting on the floor if you'd prefer. Allowing your right leg to be heavy and allowing your hands to be what's moving your leg in circles or from side to side or forward and back. Coming back to center whenever you're ready, and in your own time, maybe starting to straighten your right leg up towards the ceiling. You can keep a small bend in your right leg. If you'd like, you can bring your hands to interlace behind your right leg, and maybe choosing to point and flex your foot a few times. Another choice might be to move your right ankle in circles. And once again, if you chose circles, maybe doing a few in both directions. Finding whatever movement you might like. And another choice might be to move your entire leg forward and back or side to side. Again, making these movements as big or as small as you might like. And you might notice that smaller can be better sometimes with this shape. It can keep us balanced. It can keep both hips on the floor. Noticing any movement that comes up for you. And then whenever you're ready in your own time, slowly starting to bring your right leg down to the floor. If you'd like, you can give both legs a little bit of a shake. And in your own time, maybe slowly starting to roll over to your right side. So you can bend your knees, maybe rolling to your right side. Your right hand can be used as a pillow, or you might have your right elbow resting on the floor. Maybe your right hand is behind your head. And then in your own time, straightening your legs whenever you're ready. You can have your left hand maybe resting, holding yourself upright in this shape. So again, that right hand can be in any shape that feels right in your body, and you can feel free to change that as we're lying here. So one choice might be to stay still. Another choice, if you'd like, might be to, in your own time, lift and lower your left leg a few times. So this might be a big lift, it might be a small lift. Noticing what feels right for you and going at your own pace. And maybe you're lifting 3 times here. Maybe they're slow, or if they're faster, you might lift your leg a few more times. And whenever you're ready, letting that go. Noticing how that feels to keep your right leg soft and your left leg adding some movement. Now feel free to experiment with lifting and lowering the leg as we just did, or if you'd like, another choice might be to bend the left knee, bringing it in towards your chest, and then lower the left foot back down. Maybe doing that a few times at your own pace, bending your left knee, and then slowly lowering it back down. Really allowing this movement to be slow, noticing how your body is responding to this movement. So maybe one more time, bending that knee, and then bringing it back to meet the right leg. Now, one more variation if you'd like, or you can choose either version we just did, or maybe staying still in this shape. One choice might be to bend your knee, bringing it in towards your chest as we just did. And then if you'd like, maybe opening that leg out to the side. So almost like we're in our tree shape here, but we're lying on our side. And then slowly lowering the leg back down to the floor. Bringing the hip back so that it's facing the front of your mat, and maybe doing that again, bending your knee, opening your hip out to the side, and then slowly bringing your leg back down to the floor, bringing that hip back so that it's parallel with the right. And if you'd like, maybe doing that one more time, bending your knee, reaching that leg out to the side, and then maybe lowering back down. Making sure both hips are squared. And in your own time, maybe releasing your head down and slowly rolling yourself to lie on your back. If you'd like, you can hug your knees into your chest, maybe rock from side to side, taking a moment to add any movement you might like in your body. And feel free to stay here. I'm going to move to the other side of my mat so that I'm continuing to face the camera with the other side. But feel free to stay where you are, maybe bringing your knees to your chest, adding some movement any way that you might like. And whenever you're ready, maybe bending your left knee into your chest. So the right leg can be long, it can be bent with your foot on the floor. And hands interlaced across your left shin, maybe pausing in this shape, or if you'd like to add movement, feel free to do so as well. Again, letting the left leg be passive, so not trying to move the leg on its own, and allowing any movement to be as a result of your arms moving the leg. So whether you're moving in circles, maybe doing a few circles in one direction, a few in the opposite direction, maybe from side to side or forward and back, adding any movement that you might like in the shape. And whenever you're ready, coming back to center. If you'd like, releasing that interlace, maybe extending the left leg up towards the ceiling. Again, keeping a small bend in the left leg, and maybe bringing your hands behind your left leg to hold it there. If you'd like, you can start to point and flex your foot a few times. Maybe noticing small movements, allowing your right leg to be passive, to be soft and still. Maybe adding some ankle circles in the left ankle. If you chose circles, maybe doing a few in one direction and maybe doing a few in the opposite direction, finding whatever movement you might like. And in your own time, maybe coming back to center. And if you'd like, you might choose to move your entire leg from side to side or forward and back, making these movements as big or as small as you might like. Listening to your body, listening to what might be too much, what might be not enough movement. If you can, keeping both of your hips on the floor or the mat. And then finding your way back to center whenever you're ready. If you'd like, lowering your hands down, your leg can start to come down to the floor, maybe giving both legs a little shake, bending and straightening a few times. And in your own time, rolling over to your left side this time. So you might have your left arm long with your head resting on it. Maybe it's bent. Maybe your left hand's behind your head with your elbow on the floor. You can start to bring your legs long and maybe bringing your right hand to hold yourself in front of your body. Now from here, you can choose to stay still, or if you'd like to add those same movements, you can gently start to lift and lower your right leg, making these movements as big or as small as you might like them to be. Maybe doing 3 of those here, depending how slow the movement is for you. And then pausing whenever you feel that's complete. Finding another movement if you'd like, or going back to what we just did, or being still. If you'd like, maybe bending your right knee into your chest and then extending your right leg back down to meet your left. Possibly doing that 2 more times, finding any movement as big or as small as you might like. Making this movement slow, noticing where you might be holding. Maybe you're putting a lot of pressure in your right hand and allowing that to soften if you can. And then whenever you're ready, either doing 1 or 2 of the things we just did, maybe staying still, or maybe adding this last movement, bringing the right knee into your chest, maybe opening your hip out to the side, and then slowly in your own time, straightening your leg, bringing the hip back so that it's squared with your left hip. Maybe doing that twice more if you'd like, or finding any other movement. Bending the knee, moving the leg out to the side, almost like we're in our tree shape. And then maybe extending that leg, bringing the foot to meet the left. And then one more time if you'd like, bending your knee, opening your leg, and in your own time, straightening the leg, bringing the foot so that it's once again squared with the left hip. And whenever you're ready in your own time, releasing your head down, rolling to your back. And maybe hugging your knees into your chest one more time in this shape. Finding any movement or stillness you might like. And in your own time, finding your way to seated. So you might roll to one side, maybe using your hand to push yourself up to seated. Maybe finding another way to get to seated that feels right in your body. Once you're in seated, if you do have a blanket or a block or book, you can choose to sit on those, or you can choose to sit on the mat as you are. Maybe adding some movement, but first noticing how you're sitting. If you can, keeping your spine tall, you might notice that maybe your chin's sticking out. So if you can, keeping your chin tucked in so that the back of your neck is in line with the rest of your spine. Keeping the spine tall and allowing your body to soften in this shape. Where are you holding? Where you might not need to be holding. So taking a moment to check in with yourself, and then maybe starting to add some movement. You might start to move your head from side to side. Another choice might be to move your head up towards the ceiling and down towards the floor. Or a third choice might be to add some head circles into your movements. So finding whatever movement you might like, maybe moving your head from side to side, possibly moving your head up and down, or possibly moving your head in circles. And if you chose circles, maybe doing a few in one direction, and in your own time, maybe reversing the direction, possibly going the opposite way. Finding any movement or stillness that you might like in your head and neck. And whenever you're ready in your own time, maybe starting to make your way back to center. If you'd like, maybe adding some movement in your shoulders. You might start to move your shoulders up towards your ears, maybe lowering them back down, possibly doing that a few times. And again, this movement with our shoulders is kind of like what we were doing with the whole body, tensing the shoulders up towards the ears and then releasing them back down, releasing any of that tension and softening the shoulders back down. It might be a little tongue twister, softening the shoulders. So maybe moving your shoulders up and down a few times. Another choice might be to move your shoulders in circles. You might choose to do circles in one direction, maybe reversing that direction in your own time. Finding any movement that feels right to you in this moment. Taking another moment or two, experimenting with movement in your shoulders. And whenever you're ready, slowly starting to let that go, releasing your shoulders down. And maybe bringing each hand to rest on top of your shoulders. Another choice might be to add some movement in your arms. So with your hands resting on your shoulders, moving your arms and your elbows in circles possibly. You might choose to move them forward and back. Maybe they can touch, maybe they can't in front of your body. Maybe moving them up and down, or you might start to move your side body from side to side, moving each elbow up and down as well. So finding any movement here, you might start to notice your shoulders and your upper body opening up a little bit. Maybe moving in circles, maybe moving forward and back, maybe choosing to move from side to side. Experimenting with any or all of those choices, maybe finding some of your own choices if you'd like. And in your own time, making your way back to center and slowly releasing your hands down to rest. If you'd like, you might start to add some movement in your upper body. So maybe moving your torso from side to side. Maybe moving forward and back, another choice with our torso. So maybe moving side to side. Another choice could be to move forward and back. And a third choice might be to move in circles once again. So you can choose, if you are choosing circles, to make these circles as big or as small as you might like them to be. Really listening to your body, finding what feels right for you in this moment. And if you chose circles, maybe doing a few in both directions. In your own time, finding your way back to center. And maybe moving the arms a little bit. So you might start to raise your arms up overhead. Inhale, reaching the arms up. And on your exhale, maybe bending your elbows with your hands facing forward and your arms in a 90-degree angle. So you might notice that your shoulder blades start to move towards each other when you do this movement with your arms. And I like to call this movement football goalpost arms. So if anyone watches football, you might imagine that goalpost and looking like this half of a square or half a rectangle. So we'll do this a few more times in your own time. So maybe inhaling, raising your arms up overhead. And on your exhale, maybe bending your elbows, bringing your arms to rest in that football goalpost arm shape. So again, noticing if your shoulder blades want to come together and allowing them to do that, or allowing whatever shows up for you in your upper back. Maybe doing that one more time. Inhale, arms reach up overhead. And in your own time, exhale, bending the elbows, coming back to that shape. Noticing what feels right here. Maybe moving your arms forward and back a few times in this shape. And once again, bringing your attention to your shoulder blades if you can. And maybe notice if they move with your arm movement, or maybe they don't. And then whenever you're ready, starting to come back to center and let that go. Maybe shake your arms out a little bit. Let them move a little bit after that exercise. Now, whenever you're ready, if you'd like, maybe bringing your right hand to the floor, you might start to bring your left arm overhead into a side stretch. So in this shape, I really like to think about the softening here. You're in your shape, so there is a little bit of strength, a little bit of holding. But if you can, notice where your left shoulder is. Is it tense? Can you relax it a little bit? Can you put less pressure or less holding in your right hand on the floor? Where can you soften in this shape? And whenever you're ready, maybe starting to fold forward, moving to the other side, but first maybe carrying an imaginary beach ball in front of you into that forward fold. And then slowly making your way to the other side. The left hand reaches down to the floor, right arm overhead. And once again, noticing where you can soften. So you're holding in this shape, and then maybe there's tension in your right shoulder. Maybe you can soften there. Maybe you can release some tension in your left hand. Now we'll do this a few more times, moving back and forth from this side stretch. So maybe coming forward, holding that imaginary beach ball, moving over to the right side, right hand to the floor, left hand overhead. Taking a few moments on this side and noticing where you can soften, allowing yourself to soften into the shape. And once you feel like that's complete, maybe coming back through center and moving to the other side. Holding that big beach ball, left hand makes its way to the floor, right hand overhead. Pausing here, maybe finding where you can soften and allowing that to soften as best you can. And then doing this one more time on both sides. So maybe moving forward into that forward fold, carrying your beach ball and making your way over to the right side. Right hand to the floor, left hand overhead, finding where you can soften. And in your own time, one more time, coming back through center, carrying that imaginary beach ball and over to the left side. Left hand to the floor, right hand overhead. Allowing yourself to soften where you can, and in your own time, letting go and coming back to center. Again, let's give it a little shake. Let the arms shake it out. Maybe move from side to side. In your upper body, do a little twist from side to side if you'd like. And then finding your way back to center. In your own time, maybe starting to extend your legs out in front of you. So maybe giving a little shake of your arms, a little shake of your legs, coming back to stillness in your own time, and maybe lifting your arms up overhead. On your exhale, maybe folding forward. So you might let your hands fall on your upper legs, maybe your lower legs, maybe your hands can reach your toes, finding whatever feels accessible in your body and pausing in this shape. So once again, where can you soften in this shape? You might notice that maybe you can soften in your upper body, maybe even in your legs, even though you might not think that. In your arms, maybe with your head and neck. And then in your own time, slowly walking your hands back to center. If you'd like, maybe bending your left leg, bringing your left foot to rest against your right leg, and facing your right leg, maybe walking into that forward fold. You might lift your arms up overhead and maybe fold forward. Again, letting your hands fall wherever feels right in your body. Maybe it's your upper leg, your lower leg. Maybe you can reach for your toes. Finding what feels accessible to you today in this moment, because that might change. And pausing here. Maybe finding that softening. Taking a few moments in this shape, noticing what might come up in your body. And slowly in your own time, starting to walk back to seated. Extending the left leg out in front. And with both legs extended, once again, we'll come into that forward fold. Option to raise your arms up overhead. Option to fold forward. If you'd like to add some movement here, another choice might be to walk your hands up and down your legs a few times. So you can always come into that forward fold and pause as we did earlier, or you can add movement with your hands, moving up and down your legs a few times. Maybe thinking of where you can soften. If there's movement, there can still be softening. So noticing if that's possible for you, and know that it might not be, and that's okay too. Finding your way back to center in your own time, and moving into the other side when you're ready. So maybe bending your right leg, bringing your right foot to rest against your left leg, and finding your forward fold, maybe lifting your arms up overhead, and maybe folding over your left leg. You might bring your hands to your upper leg, your lower leg, maybe you can reach your toes. Finding what feels right for you, pausing in this shape, and maybe noticing where you can soften a little bit more. Taking a few more moments to notice, to check in with your body, and then in your own time, slowly starting to make your way to seated. Extending your right leg out in front of you, giving your legs a little bit of a shake in this shape. And finding your way to your hands and knees. So if you have sensitive knees like I do, you might want to reach for a blanket or a cushion so that your knees can have a little extra cushioning on the floor in our table shape. So maybe bringing that to the mat if you don't need it, no need. And bringing your knees and hands to the mat in your own time. Bringing your wrists so that they're underneath your shoulders, knees are underneath your hips. And then in this shape, if you'd like, finding your cat and cow movements. So maybe inhaling, lifting your head, looking towards the front of your mat. Maybe there's a curve in your lower back into your cow shape. On your exhale, maybe lowering your head down, curving your lower back up, and maybe pausing in this shape. Inhale, coming into your cow, head and chest look up. Maybe on your exhale, lowering your head down, curving your back up into cat. Option 2, pause in one shape or the other, allowing yourself to notice what comes up for you. Maybe you want to pause. Maybe you want to make this a continuous movement. And once again, as you're moving in your cat-cows, noticing where you might be able to soften. One thing sometimes I notice in my body is when I come into cow, my shoulders are really tense. So being aware of your shoulders, can you relax them anywhere? Being aware of your legs, is there tension being held there, or your arms? And it might be different every time you add this movement, or maybe not. Finding any movement in your own time. And whenever you're ready, coming back to center. Taking your time getting there, maybe doing one more cat-cow in both directions. And finding your way to your center. Moving into your downward dog. So maybe bringing your hands forward from where they are a little bit. Maybe they stay where they are. If you'd like, pressing your toes into the mat, straightening your knees, and bringing your hips up towards the ceiling. One choice might be to stay still in your downward dog. Another choice might be to add some movement. Maybe you choose to bend one knee and then the other, walking your dog out a little bit. Maybe you choose to move your hips from side to side. Maybe you choose to bend both knees at the same time, moving in any way that feels right in your body, noticing what movement or stillness you might like, and then in your own time, slowly lowering your knees back down towards the mat, finding your table once again. And if you'd like, maybe bringing your right foot in between your hands. Now, if you do have blocks or books, you might choose to bring them to the mat for your hands to rest on. You can also choose to have your hands resting directly on the mat. Now, here you might choose to stay still, or if you'd like to add movement, maybe slowly moving forward and backward. So you can choose to walk your hands forward and back, allowing this movement to be as big or as small as you might like. Or maybe it's not a movement at all. Maybe it's so small that only you know that you're moving. Maybe it's a little bit bigger. So really listening to your body, stopping if there's pain, and only going as far as feels available to you today. And whenever you're ready, coming back to center, and maybe bringing your left hand to the mat or to a block or book if you have one. Lifting your right hand overhead into a twist, so keeping that back knee bent on the floor. Taking a few moments in this shape, maybe moving your arm forward and back if you'd like to add some movement in this shape. And then whenever you're ready, starting to bring your right hand back down to the mat. You might start to take your right leg and maybe bring it behind your back, pressing your right toes into the floor, or maybe bringing that foot so that it's parallel to the back of your mat. You might choose to stay here with both hands on your mat, or if you'd like, you can choose to lift your right arm overhead. So this is our kneeling side plank. Again, if you want to add movement, maybe moving that right arm forward and back a few times, choosing movement or stillness. And then in your own time, bringing your right arm back to the mat, and in turn, your right leg back to the mat as well. Maybe keeping your hips where they are, and if you'd like, you can start to walk your hands forward into your puppy shape. Arms reach forward, head makes its way down to the floor, or if that's unavailable for you, you can reach for a block or a book to rest your head on as well. Taking a few moments in the shape and noticing in your puppy shape if you can soften a little bit more. You might notice your upper body opening up a little bit in this shape. Taking a few breaths, a few moments, and allowing yourself to rest as best you can in this shape. And slowly in your own time, bringing both hands back to the mat. Now finding your table in your own time, I'm going to rotate. So once again, I'm facing you for this other side. And in your own time, maybe find your downward dog again. So you might keep your hands where they are, maybe move them a little forward, and then pressing your toes into the mat, straightening your knees and bringing your hips up. Maybe adding some movement once again, bending one knee and then the other. Maybe being still in this shape. Maybe moving your hips from side to side, bending and straightening both knees. And in your own time, slowly making your way back down to the floor with your knees, finding your table once again. Hands come under your shoulders. If you'd like, maybe bringing your left foot in between your hands. And if you do have blocks or books, you can bring your hands to rest on top of them if you'd like. You can also have your hands directly on the mat. Now you might choose to pause here. You might choose to add some movement. So maybe walking your hands forward, maybe your hips follow. Maybe walking your hands back, maybe your hips follow as well. Choosing to be still in this shape, maybe choosing to add movement. And that movement can be incredibly small, or it can be a little bit bigger. You can allow it to be whatever feels right in your body. And if there is any pain, making sure to move out of that shape and doing something else. Maybe experimenting with any movement you would like, and then in your own time, coming back to that kneeling lunge where we started. Taking your right hand, bringing it to the mat or a block or book, and then lifting your left arm up overhead. You might choose to pause here. Maybe if you'd like to add movement, moving your arm forward and back a few times. Finding whatever movement or stillness you might like in this shape. And maybe bringing the left hand back to the mat. You might start to bring the left foot back to the mat. So maybe pressing the toes into the mat and then bringing that foot so that it's parallel to the back of your mat. You might stay here with your hands on the mat, or if you'd like, you might raise your left arm overhead into this side plank shape on the other side. If you'd like to add movement, maybe that top hand, the left hand, reaches forward and back a few times. Noticing what feels right in your body. And then whenever you're ready, letting that go, bringing your left hand back to the mat, your left foot to meet it, and finding your way back to your table shape. If you'd like, for a little rest, you might start to bring your hips back to child shape. Maybe feet or knees are together, or you might widen your knees and maybe sit your hips back towards your feet. You might start to reach your arms forward in front of your body. Head might make its way down to the mat or to a block or book. And once again, allowing yourself to soften is in this shape as we did in puppy shape. Noticing what you can let go of, what might you still be holding on to. And allow yourself to sink into the mat in this shape. Noticing where you might be holding tension. And allowing yourself to let go a little bit more. In your own time, whenever you're ready, finding your way back to your table shape. And we'll make our way to sit down. So you might sit down on your feet and then bring one hip to the floor to bring your legs out in front of your body. If you do have a blanket on your mat, you might move it aside. Finding your way to sit down on your mat. And maybe starting in your bound angle shape. So bringing the bottoms of your feet together. If you do have blocks or books, you might bring them underneath your knees for support. Or you might choose not to use that as support. Whatever feels right in your body. Keeping your spine tall, bringing that chin in so that your neck is in line with the rest of your spine. Hands can be resting on your feet or your legs, anywhere that feels right for you. And maybe noticing where you can soften. Maybe noticing you might want to bring those blocks underneath your knees so that you really can soften your knees, letting them sink into those blocks or books or even cushions or blankets, whatever you might have, if you notice you need a little bit of support there. Releasing that tension where you can. And if you'd like, another choice might be to start to walk your hands forward. So maybe walking your hands forward, maybe pausing in a forward fold. You might choose to add some movement, walking your hands forward and back a few times. Or staying in that seated shape, whatever your body feels like it needs in this moment. And then in your own time, whenever you're ready, making your way back to seated if you're not already there. Bringing your hands underneath your knees, bringing them to meet each other. And then maybe extending your legs out in front of you, giving your legs a little bit of a shake again. And if you did use any props, moving them to the side off of your mat. And finding your way to lie on your back whenever you're ready. If you do have a block or book or some sort of cushion or blanket, feel free to reach for that and have it nearby. And I'll move mine over here actually. And find your way to the floor in your own time. Slowly making your way to the floor. And if you'd like, maybe bending your knees, bringing your feet to the mat. Bringing both hands by your sides, palms facing down. And if you'd like, you can walk your feet in as close to your hips as feels accessible to you. And in your own time, maybe starting to inhale and bring your hips up off the floor, finding your bridge shape. And on your exhale, maybe slowly lowering your hips back down to the floor. In your own time, slowly inhaling, lifting your hips up off the floor. And then once you reach the top, slowly exhaling, lowering your hips back down to the floor in your own time. One more full breath in, maybe lifting your hips up off the floor. And then slowly in your own time, maybe lowering your hips back down to the floor. Now, if you'd like, reaching for that block or book or blanket or cushion or whatever it is you might have. If you don't have a prop, I'll show you that variation first. So if you don't have a prop, slowly inhaling your hips up and bringing your hands, palms facing down underneath your hips, and then resting your hips on top of your hands. If you do have a block or book or some sort of prop, you can once again, as I mentioned, lift your hips up and then bring that block on the lowest setting or any prop slightly so that it's underneath your hips, holding your hips, feeling secure, and letting your hips rest down on that item, whatever that might be. Now you can choose to stay here in supported bridge if you'd like. Another choice might be to start to extend your legs up towards the ceiling, almost like you're trying to stand on the ceiling. So you might flex your feet, raising your legs up, and if you want, Slowly starting to soften in this shape. So maybe letting your feet let go of that flex, maybe letting there be more of a bend in your legs. So choosing that bridge shape with your feet on the floor or choosing to extend your legs up towards the ceiling, whatever feels right in your body. Allowing yourself to soften in both shapes. Maybe noticing your breathing if you'd like. And then whenever you're ready, slowly bringing your feet back down to the floor if you raise them up towards the ceiling. Bringing your feet to the floor whenever you're ready, pressing your feet into the floor to lift your hips up, and then with your hands taking out whatever prop, if it was your hands, taking your hands out from underneath you and slowly lowering your hips back down to the floor. If you'd like, you might choose to move your legs from side to side. You might bring your knees into your chest, finding whatever movement or stillness you might like in this shape. And in your own time, if your knees are not in towards your chest, maybe bringing them in towards your chest and slowly bringing both legs over to the right side of your body. Your right leg is on top, your left leg is on, your right leg is on bottom, your left leg is on top. And maybe pausing here, you might bring your arms out in a T shape or that football goalpost shape with your elbows bent. And then if you'd like to move into a twist, you might bring your gaze over your left shoulder. So finding your body either completely on your right side or maybe twisting with your head gazing to the left and your legs over to the right. Taking a moment in this shape, slowly coming back to center whenever you're ready. You might choose to hug your knees into your chest again. And whenever you'd like, slowly bringing the left leg to the floor, the right leg to rest on top. So you might either move your entire body to rest on your left side, or you might choose to extend your arms out in a T shape on either side of you, or maybe bending your elbows into that football goalpost shape. And then bringing your gaze over towards your right shoulder for a twist. So finding a twist if you'd like, or maybe choosing to rest only on your left side. Taking another moment or two in this shape, noticing how your body is resting, letting yourself soften where you can, and slowly coming back to center. If you'd like, you might hug your knees into your chest again, and then finding your way to your rest. So if you'd like, there's a few choices for rest today. You can rest with your knees bent, maybe arms by your sides or resting on your abdomen. You might have your legs long. If you have blankets or cushions, you might support underneath your knees. You might lift your feet up off the floor. You might support underneath your head. Another shape that I have really enjoyed recently is bringing one arm over the head and then the other so that your opposite hand is reaching for your opposite elbow and you're somewhat cradling your head. So this really can open up the shoulders a little bit. You can experiment with this. Another choice might be to have your knees bent with your feet out to the far edges of your mat, knees knocking in towards each other. Experimenting with any or all of these choices. And once you find the choice that feels right for you, you might start to settle in that shape. So again, if you have any props, feel free to use them to allow yourself to be supported in this shape. Feel free to cushion underneath your knees, your legs, your arms, your feet, whatever you prefer. Settling into whatever resting shape you chose. And taking a moment, as we did at the beginning of class, to notice what you might be holding on to still. So notice if there's parts of your body that are holding on to tension. Noticing if there's parts of your body that might not be. And if you are noticing that you're still holding in some areas of your body, maybe making an effort to allow that to release, to allow your body to soften a little bit more, to let go of that holding in your body. And maybe noticing where there might be resistance to letting go, some resistance to this softening. Sometimes we're so focused on what we're doing that our body stays tense and we don't even realize it. So taking a moment, if you can, and if you'd like to check in with your body and to notice. Maybe noticing how your feet and toes are resting. Letting go of any tension there. Maybe noticing how your legs are resting and releasing any tension you might be feeling, any holding. And noticing if one leg feels a little different than the other as well. You might notice that as we move through our bodies. Maybe noticing how your hips are resting. Releasing any tension if you can. In your own time, maybe noticing how your back, your lower back, your middle back, and eventually your upper back where your shoulders are resting. Releasing where you can. And noticing where you're still holding tension. Maybe starting to notice your arms and how they're resting. And your hands and fingers. Releasing any tension where you can. Noticing what might be coming up for you if you'd like. And in your own time, maybe finding your way to your head and neck. And noticing where there's tension there. You might start to move your head from side to side, maybe releasing any tension that might be there. Taking a moment to notice in your own time how your entire body is resting in this space. Finding any tension, if you can, allowing it to release and let go. And if you can't, that's okay too. No matter what, without judgment, letting everything that is be with your body. Letting go of any expectation. So noticing if you can soften. Finding that space for yourself. And I'll be quiet for a minute. So feel free to use that time to move in any way you might like or to be still. In your own time, whenever you're ready. Maybe slowly bringing some movement back into your body. You might start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Another choice might be to move your wrists and ankles in circles. A third choice might be to bring your arms up overhead for a full body stretch. If you have room, you can make room for it. And then maybe any other stretches or movements that might help bring you back into this space. If you'd like, you can hug your knees into your chest, maybe roll to one side, maybe taking a few breaths on one side if you'd like. And then slowly, whenever you're ready, finding your way back to a seated shape. Taking your time getting there, finding your way back to seated. And if you'd like, maybe bringing your palms together in front of your chest. May the light within me honor the light within each of you. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me for Gentle Yoga today. My name is Kristin O'Donnell, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.